Hey guys, in this episode we're going to be installing a battery which requires installing this rack. So stay tuned! Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do here is just put in these little leg extenders here. These allow you to mount the rack onto the bike frame. Alright, there we go. That's nice and tight. We are going to put on these little extenders. These go up near the seat post. That's the other pivot point here. The cool part about this rack is that I can use it to add extra storage. It'll work for more than just the battery. As you can see here, the battery only is going to take up about half of the room on there. So yeah, it should be pretty cool having a little extra storage, and then of course room to mount the electrical wiring and fuses and whatnot. Now I'm going to leave these just kind of finger tight for now, so then I can go back and adjust these later once I know where things line up on the bike. Alright, so now that I got the bike rack assembled, I'm going to have to remove this little protector for the derailleur because we need to use these bolt holes to mount the bike rack. Okay, so now I'm just going to put my, holy crap, just realized how crappy that tire is. Look at that. This is ridiculous, the amount of flap on this thing. Wow. That's some quality craftsmanship there. Anyway, so now I'm going to put on this rack here, and I'm going to use the existing bolts right here. Oh my god, that is ridiculous. I've never seen that. It's like a dorsal fin on the tire. It's ridiculous. Alright, got that side in. I'll go over here and take care of this side. Oh boy! Oops. Alright, we're gonna go find some longer bolts. Okay, we are back with some longer bolts. Give this a try now, again. Okay, so the next step would be bolting up here, but as you can see, we don't have an up here to bolt to on this bike. So I'm gonna have to mark those holes and then drill them, and then we'll put in some through bolts. Alright, so now that I have both of the holes drilled, I'm just going to file off the burrs on the back side of the holes. Okay, now I can move this forward again and put in my bolts. Just like that. How fancy is this, having a rear bike rack? Alright, so now that we have the holes drilled, you want to check and make sure this is level, and it looks pretty level to me. If you need to, you can tap that back or forward, and that'll rotate around the wheel down there. So, now that we got everything leveled up, all we're going to do is tighten up what we left loose before. Okay, so here I just have an old battery holder from a car. It's kind of rusty. I think I'm gonna wire brush this and get it all cleaned up, and then maybe repaint it if I have time. Anyway, as you can see, it's quite a bit longer, or I should say wider than this battery is, because it's meant for a car battery. So what we're gonna have to do here is cut this and then slide it over and then weld it shorter so we can bolt it up and have these pads sitting on the battery. So I'm just going to measure this. I see right now the spacing on these holes about 6 3/4 inches, and then here we have 5 1/4. So we're going to have to take this down 1.5 inches. So from now on we're going to go out to the shop and do a bunch of metal work. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is take off some of this old paint and rust and just make this a little more livable. Okay, so you can see I've got most of the rust and paint off. I'm going to use a drill and a rotary wire brush to take off the rest. And here's a helpful hint: if you have some stubborn paint, you can also scrape it off with a screwdriver too. If you're worried about scratches in the metal, you might not want to use the screwdriver though. Okay, that's looking pretty good to me. I think next I'm going to go ahead and cut the center. Okay, so now we have our two halves. We're going to need to measure to get back to our original 5 1/4 measurement that we needed. Just going to line it up and mark it at the right measurement. And that is where we need to make our next cut. Alright, I'm just going to check the measurement here. Oh, you're looking pretty close to 5 1/4. Now I'm just going to grind off these edges, get rid of the burrs, line it up, and then we'll be ready to weld. Okay, so here you can see I got all the paint out of these channels here. So we'll have a nice clean weld that'll just line up right like that. You want to make sure you have no gap here, and also that this is not twisted, and it looks pretty close. Okay, so now that I'm done pretending to be Zeus, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up this weld here, and then we'll just be ready to paint after that. Okay, so I'm not going to go crazy on this. I'm just going to do a quick shot of Rust-Oleum flat black, just to make sure that it doesn't rust instantly. That's good. Okay, so I brought the party back inside for a second here. I was just checking this out, and you can see, oh whoops, you can see that the threads are higher than the top of the battery, so that's not going to work out. So what we're going to do is cut down here about 1 inch up and curl it back around. That way we don't have to mess with any threads, and then that'll bring this down closer to here, and then we'll be able to tighten up the battery with its brand new resized bracket. Okay, so I was just taking a closer look at this in correlation to the bracket. The bracket's actually pretty flat because it's going to be laying on the battery. So I'm just going to take this off right at the tip of the hook rather than a whole inch. There we go. And I'm just going to pull this back a little bit. Let's see, how long... Oh, shit! Whew. How long are these hooks? Yeah, it's about right. Need a little more. There. All right, then it's hammer time. A little bit more. All right, that's pretty close. I'm just going to do the same for the other side. Okay, so now we're finally ready to test fit these and make sure everything works out here on top of the battery. Just want to make sure you don't touch the battery posts, because it could short out the battery if you do that, or definitely will anyways. We'll check out the other side. All right, that looks pretty good. This side's a little long. Let's see there. All right, good tension. It's not going anywhere. So I'm just going to cut off the extra part of the threads we don't need there. And then we should be good to go. All right, there we go. Now we have a very securely mounted battery. The only thing left to do is zip tie off this excess overflow hose here. So zip tying this will make sure that it doesn't get in the way of the spokes or the chain while it's going around. And it's also a good idea not to delete it, because in the event that there is an overflow, you want it to follow a good path to the ground and not get all over, like, well, your tire and then having it spray all over you. That'd suck. So make sure this is pointed downwards and away from yourself. All right, and that's the end of today's video. All right, thanks for watching today, guys. This ended up being a lot longer of a project than I thought it was going to be today. Who knew there'd be as much metal fabrication involved? Just put a battery on, but that's what you got to do when a pedal bike's not designed to have a battery. But now it's awesome. It's secured in place. It's going to work great. I'm thinking we have one big video left. That's going to be running all the wires for the electrical system and putting on that tail light. And then there's just going to be a first run and then maybe a race or something. So we're getting towards the end of the build, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you click subscribe if you haven't already, and then hit that little bell icon so you're notified on your phone when that next video is released. I'll see you guys next time.